Well, my prediction from last time didn't end up coming true, did it? My crystal ball must have been a little bit off on this one, but it looks like it did summon us some Deltarune news, as Toby Fox has posted recently. Let's see what he has to say. This first post has pretty much nothing to do with actual Deltarune news, but I thought I'd include it anyway. A friend of mine was using a tool to analyse market research for his game. As a check, he tested it on Deltarune. Seems like I have a lot of things to work on. Then the attached image reads, weaknesses, unskippable cutscenes, some chapters feel half-baked, minor bugs, excessive makeout scenes, and slow segments in gameplay. So it seems like a friend of Toby's fed Deltarune into some, I guess, AI system or some program that collects a bunch of market research about a game, compiles it into these short bullet points. Clearly this tool maybe doesn't work the best because not a lot of these apply to Deltarune, huh? You know, I have been meaning to bring this up though, ever since I started making these Deltarune videos. I knew it was kind of a sour topic in the fandom, but I'm just not here for the excessive makeout scenes. I know in every chapter they always end with a excessive makeout scene between two characters, but really I don't understand what it adds to the story. I know it's a hot take, but I think the game could be better without them. Okay, let's move on to the real meat of this video now. This is the post that I really want to talk about. Toby says, "We'll receive the first draft of the Japanese translation of Chapter 5 next week. Meanwhile, we've been polishing the game and doing some preliminary internal bug testing on PC. Heavy bug testing across every console will happen when the Japanese translation is done." So that is just cool. The translation is progressing. It seems like the first draft is pretty much done right now, which likely means that the entirety of Chapter 5 has been translated from start to finish in some form. So this all but confirms that Chapter 5 is entirely content complete. Perhaps there could be a few little extra things added on, like there was for Chapter 4, with the mic room as the main example. We can presume that the bulk of the content is finalized right now, as they were able to translate it. You know, there's no point translating something that might be changed later, so they want to lock in what the English script has to be before even starting work on the Japanese script. That just makes sense, right? So the next step is that Toby will likely be going back and forth with the translation team in order to ensure that the translation is the best it can be. And also, I guess, going through to see if there's any grammatical errors, perhaps, if there are any specific jokes that Toby wants to make sure translate well in Japanese. So that's the next step for that. It's the checking phase of the translation. It seems like they've also started some early bug testing as well, only on the PC version for right now, but that does sound promising as well. It really seems like at the moment they're able to tackle multiple aspects of development at the same time, with the different members of the team focusing on their specific areas of expertise, which is just nice to hear about. It's efficiency, right? Which is slightly different to Chapter 3 and 4's development, which was plagued with a few issues that delayed development and stopped this sort of parallel development from happening, such as waiting for Game Maker, the game engine that they use, to update to receive the specific functions that they needed to make Deltarune even work. That was one of the biggest sticking points for Chapter 3 and 4, and the full release of Deltarune as a whole. But it also sounds like from this post that they are already starting work on the console versions of Chapter 5, which I believe is the first time we've heard about the console ports existing for Chapter 5. If they're already prepared to do this heavy bug testing once the translation is done, then surely that means the console ports are at least somewhat functional as of right now. The console ports have to exist before they can bug test them, right? Which again sounds promising. I guess the knowledge and expertise they already have from porting the existing chapters to consoles may have made Chapter 5's process a little bit easier. You know, they've done this for 4 chapters so far. But what we can do now is compare what Toby has just said and the deductions that I've made from it to this rough timeline that he gave us in a recent newsletter. newsletter. The timeline goes as such: making game, localization, making game, porting game, finish, testing and bug fixing, release. So, today, Toby was talking about localization and porting, which are both in step 2 here. Both of these steps do seem fairly close to completion though. They're on the latter stages of both of those parts. He also mentioned bug testing, which, as you can see here, is after the finish step, which I assume finish is referring to actually finishing the content of the game, which, as we've already discussed today, is seemingly pretty much done for Chapter 5. So, after the translation and porting are done, all that's left to do is that aforementioned bug testing on all platforms. We can also compare Chapter 5's development to Chapter 4's to get a good idea of the time all this stuff usually takes, and how long these steps usually are before release. Right now, we're basically at the same point that we were when Chapter 3 and 4 were described as frozen by Toby in this newsletter. At this point, Chapter 3 and 4 were content complete, and the release was simply waiting for translation and testing to be done, as well as waiting for the Switch 2 to release, as it was a day-and-date launch title for the Switch 2. This newsletter was released in holiday of 2024, which was around the 18th of December, I think. Chapter 3 and 4 came out on June 5th, 2025, so that would be around 6 months after they were described as frozen. So going by that logic, I guess we could expect Chapter 5 to release in about 6 months from now. So that would make it August when it comes out. Of course, many different things can affect that release window, and this is just a prediction after all, but the more information we get on development, the more clear guess I can make on the release window, the more it narrows it down for me. So I think with this new info that we have now, a August or September release seems the most likely. But as I already mentioned, Chapter 3 and 4 may have been somewhat artificially delayed to release alongside the Switch 2. So it's possible, because they don't have that sort of commitment this time round, that it might cut out some of the waiting time, so it could actually be maybe a few months before August. It depends how long the chapters were basically sitting there complete, just waiting for the Switch 2. That is information that we just don't know. But overall, this little bit of news we've got today sounds very promising, to be honest. They are chugging along with development and things seem to be going very smoothly. I would expect Toby's release window that he's given us already of the second half of 2026 seems accurate. My current guess is probably August for when it comes out. But technically, it could still come out in July. That is technically still the second half of the year. I just wanted to come in and drop this in here last minute, just to say that it's entirely possible that the most recent newsletter that Toby Fox has given us is going to be the final one before Chapter 5 releases. In that newsletter, he gave us the most detailed look at where development is at, and now we know that the game is at the same point that Chapter 3 and 4 were when they were frozen, as I've already discussed. And interestingly enough, that winter newsletter where that was mentioned was actually the last one before Chapter 3 and 4 released. In between that newsletter and the release, Toby just posted a few sparse updates on social media rather than dedicating full newsletters to them. So it's possible that now we might just be getting these little drops of information every now and again on social media whenever Toby thinks it's relevant. But again, another sign that the release is upcoming, let's say. We'll wait and see, shall we? The hype train will keep going, and hopefully my crystal ball will become more attuned the further we go and the more news we get about Deltarune. If you want to help support me in the channel here, there's things you can do. They're on the screen right now. You'll get perks for doing those things, but don't worry if you can't. A like and subscribe on the video also helps greatly. And I just want to say thank you for watching, and I'll see you in whatever the next video is.